Yash, the purpose of a real, true spiritual practice. Talking about true spiritual practice, or even true religion. And if I summarize and make it easy, just put it in a nutshell, it is for the consciousness to guide this localized consciousness to become aware of its source, of its pure nature, which is pure consciousness. Localized consciousness means so this pure consciousness, it individualized itself without losing anything. It just kind of individualized itself. Then that created and incarnated into its creation, the body. And then it starts believing that it's this body, it's this form. So a spiritual practice, because that's part of the game. We have to taste that. This is the virtual reality. This is the cosmic movie. Consciousness wanted to make a movie, and it did. And it's in it, and thinks it's not a movie. So the spiritual practice helps to wake up the consciousness. This is why the terms awakening or enlightenment, it wakes up the consciousness so that the consciousness sees, realizes, the localized consciousness realizes that, well, I'm localized. Like, this is a big limitation compared to what I really came from, what I really am. It's like a wave in the ocean. It thinks it's a wave and it's waving around, and it's like, whoa, light bulb. It's like, I'm like part of this whole ocean. That's realization. That would be an example of how the wave realized itself. Now, the pitfall, especially non-duality and Advaita and self-inquiry teachings and all that, is that this form that the consciousness created includes body, mind, and emotional body or energy body. The mind can imitate this awakening. The mind can imitate the pure consciousness. You see, that's one of the last most subtle things that has to be caught out. We have to catch that, and a lot of people don't. I mean, we all will at some point. It's destiny. It's just a question like when, how many lifetimes. Because the mind the ego, which is individualized consciousness, it loves to think it got something, including awakening or enlightenment. It's like, I got it. I'm awake. Even if it doesn't tell anybody, but they do a lot. They even make video. I just couldn't believe, like, it was funny. The first time I seen the video of somebody, he turned the camera on right when he's like, okay, now the awakening's happening. Oh, wow. And then they do the little smile. And then it started to catch. It like became a trend or something, because then other people started doing it. I'm like, whoa. Don't do that if you can help it. So see, the ego and mind loves that. It loves those theatrics. Even I went to Muji's in Zimar like 8 years ago, his retreat, and you always got a few that do that. It's like part of the theater of consciousness. You have to include all these actors and characters, shaking and like almost like the religious, except they don't say praise the Lord. They just I don't know. So the real when it's a true fusion, when consciousness truly realizes its source, it doesn't want to. You don't even want to tell anybody. Like, it feels weird. It's such an intimate thing. It's like if you have a loving partner, wife or husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, and you have really good connecting sex. You're not gonna like make a video and maybe someone and say and talk about the intimacy of how that felt and how she was when you were doing it, And you know what I mean? Like, it's a natural feeling. Like, you just don't do that. Now, are there exceptions? There's always exceptions. There's always exceptions, but I'm saying generally speaking. And it gives off a certain scent if somebody's speaking from their mind, as opposed to if it's authentic or not. So, spiritual practice, though. Did I lose my thing? I don't think. It's all, together, right? That's why a lot of these self-inquiry and Advaita, non-dual, Avadut, it's just so direct. It's just telling you, and then the Ashtavakra Gita and some of these books, they're just outpourings of this realization. A lot of people can't assimilate that. Is that a spiritual practice, these things? They're more pointings. Those are more pointings, which is cool if you're ready at that stage. I've touched on that in another video. So is it still, it's like an advanced spiritual practice, because you're constantly self-remembering, and these pointings are helping you self-remember. I'd say that's what that spiritual practice is. But the definition of spiritual practice in conventional terms is more like pantology. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I can't, any name that's not an English name, I have trouble saying it. But I want to say it, Pantajali or something like that. The yoga guy, he gives these steps, in to pure first, like almost like the Ten Commandments, like don't hurt anybody, don't steal, and then gets into purifying the body, and then doing certain yoga asanas that help the physical body, and then gets more into bandhas and mudras and pranayama to work on the subtle body. And they have all these stages, which is great for a lot of people, the average person. That's authentic. That wakes the consciousness up to a certain degree, to where then it can assimilate these more advanced pointings. You can't skip that. If that's where somebody is, if that's the true stage they're in, you can't just give them non-dual or self-inquiry pointings and just be like, bro, this is where it's at. Just forget all that. See, that's happened before in my life when I was working with certain people, before because we're always growing in wisdom. I know more now than I did last year and the year before. And Muji also, I listened to him like when he started 20 years ago, and he's on another level too. Another level in terms of the human expression, the localized consciousness realizing its source. That's never ending. It never stops evolving. It can always merge more and more. There's so much to say, and sometimes I forget where I left off. But I think I got it. The consciousness, when it localizes and goes to sleep and believes it's creation, that it's creation, in this sense it's our human form, when it believes that deeply, there's different levels of waking up. It's a deep sleep. It's not like we're sleeping at night and we wake up in the morning and we're up. No, this takes time to wake up, man. Obviously. What do you think? One human life? This is why some of the Vedas say it can take thousands, a million lives to wake up. There's so many little things. There's so many. It gets so subtle. Don't worry about that. I'm not creating fear or nothing. The fact is, if we're having this dialogue right now, like we are, okay, you're good. We're all good. But I'm just saying, the average collective, individual, the consciousness needs stages of this waking up, and this is what some of these other teachers and yoga teachers do. For somebody just to dismiss them and say it's all pointless, spiritual practice is pointless. You don't need that. I'm telling you, it shows that they haven't really realized this principle in themselves. Because if you did, you would understand. It's just automatic. How are you going to tell people to declare a spiritual practice is unnecessary? You wouldn't do that. You'd have wisdom. You'd have compassion, and you would understand these other levels because you've been there and you've transcended them. So you understand them. If you didn't transcend them, then you may talk silly, you see. So I'm making another video on is a spiritual practice necessary? Right, this video is what is a spiritual practice, and then I'm going to make is it necessary? Good. See you soon.